Welcome to the Board of Selectmen meeting for Tuesday, June 29, 2021. Before we get started, I would ask if we can stand and salute the flag, which is behind us. Over here. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, our first order of business, actually we have nothing scheduled, so what we're going to do, let's just jump right into the residence portion. And Jason, do we have any residents this evening?
I haven't even sat down yet.
I know, well, and I know there's going to be a little bit of lag still with the WebEx, so we'll give it a little bit. Mr. Montori, do you have any quick hitters for town manager? I believe we have.
We can go to town council invoice.
Okay, why don't we proceed with that? We'll just take care of a little bit of business and we'll wait. We do have a resident? Okay. Yep, you can proceed, Mr. Montori, we're good.
There's a town council invoice for June 1st through June 15th in the amount of $3,867.50, and I would recommend approval.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. All right, so let's proceed here with the, under new business, we have Board of Selectmen, Boards and Committees membership, so that's on us. So typically what we're going to do is we kind of look at the committees and boards that we're on, talk about if we want to remain on those, or anybody wants to switch or anything, and then we'll just make a decision to see, just carry out our terms. So,
Mr. Chairman?
please.
Just as a courtesy to Mr. Gilbert and Mr. Hardigan, I don't know if it might be wise to take that item out of order,
Absolutely, yeah.
and then the rest of it is our work. So
We'll get you out of the oven.
just, I don't want to
No, that's
intrude on where you're heading, but
That's very fair.
it might be a good thing to do.
So, Mr. Montori, why don't we keep the floor to you, Mr. Montori?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a brief presentation, I believe it's 6 or 7 slides, regarding the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. These are the funds that the town will be receiving, and I just want to go through this and provide a recommendation that we've been working on internally and see if the board is interested in moving forward. Just by way of some brief history, as many of you know, on March 11, 2021, the President signed into law the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021, otherwise known as ARPA. It provided $350 billion in emergency funding for eligible state, local, territorial, tribal governments and tribal governments. The law provided resources through the new coronavirus local fiscal recovery fund to local governments to respond to the public health emergency caused by the coronavirus disease. The fund is being administered by the U.S. Department of Treasury. The Commonwealth received $5.3 billion in funding through the Act, which is coordinated through the Executive Office of Administration and Finance, Federal Funds Office. The Treasury, U.S. Treasury, identified 5 core areas for deploying the funds. First was in regard to public health spending. This included COVID mitigation efforts, medical expenses, behavioral health, and certain public health and safety staff. It also provided for economic impacts of the public health emergency, including to mitigate economic harm to workers, households, small businesses, industries affected by COVID, and also the public sector. The third area was loss of public sector revenue. These would be payments to local governments for services to the extent that revenues were reduced due to the pandemic that would be restored to provide those services. The fourth area was premium pay for essential workers. Those would be workers that face the greatest health risks because of their services in critical infrastructure sectors. And then finally, core funding area was funding water, sewer, broadband infrastructure. The areas that could not be funded with the coronavirus relief funds were replenishing rainy day funds within a municipality or other reserve funds, and making a deposit to a pension fund. So they were very specific and very in the areas that they identified in the scope of what you can use the funds for. The town received an allocation of $3.2 million from the state, from the American Rescue Plan Act. Middlesex County received a little over $6 million in an allocation from the opera funds. But because Middlesex County is one of 8 abolished counties in the state, the funds came directly to the community. Where counties still exist in the Commonwealth, the funds went to the counties, and the counties would disperse the money. Because Middlesex County was abolished, our funds came directly to us. Middlesex County received $313 million. Our allocation, based on a per capita figure, was the $6,055,961. So our total fund allocation from the American Rescue Plan Act is $9,319,317. We have received 50% of our municipal allocation, and over time they'll be releasing more funds. We have submitted all of the paperwork needed, so the town is up to date in all of its filings.
Mr. Montori, if I may, just what do you estimate to be the timing to receive the funds in full? Is this a multi-year kind of cap?
So you have till 2024, I believe, to finish spending the funds, so I'm guessing within that time frame, they'll start releasing the funds, and as we spend money, we can ask for reimbursement, so it'll be a combination of both.
Thank you.
We were surprised that the funds came in last week. We just received, the Treasury received 50% of the funds, and we were trying to figure out why, and it's for this funding. So at this point, I'm going to just turn this over to Kevin Hardeman, the town engineer, and Brian Gilbert, the director of public works, to discuss our recommended use of funds. Our focus would be to use the funds on that 5th priority, core priority area, which was used for water, sewer, and broadband. Our recommendation is to use it for water distribution projects in town, and Kevin and Brian will walk you through the projects they would recommend doing.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Brian Gilbert, Director of Public Works. So what we did was we focused on water and replacing our water lines in town. Some of our, if you will, our goals here were to align with our existing capital program to the extent that we could. We wanted to add more 2-inch iron pipe into our replacement program. So it doesn't follow the capital plan verbatim, but it's very close to that. So aligning with the capital program, water break frequency was another issue. Replacing, as I said, the 2-inch wrought iron pipe and 6-inch AC pipe, which will improve quality of water, pressure, and volume issues in certain parts of town. And then the other was to connect or align with other capital improvements, some being sidewalk installations, roadway repaving, things of that sort. There's, I believe, 9 that were chosen, 7 that's in front of you now. The last 2 are in italics. If we use the fund, the rate per or the cost per foot that we just have in our last contract, we could do everything on the list. but we don't know if we're going to be able to do that over this time frame. Plus, there's a lot of money coming in for infrastructure, so we don't know if some factors such as bidding is going to go up, material supply, and things of that sort. So we based our estimates on $250 per linear foot. And if it comes in around that, we can do 1 through 5. If it's on our current per foot cost, we can do all 7. We plan to do all 7, we would end up replacing 46,000 linear feet, or just about 8.7 miles of road. I guess I'm going to turn it over to Kevin to just go over the details of each one of those projects.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. So as you can see on the list, Bay State Road, Phase 2 is on there as the top project. Phase 1 is under construction right now. We've been designing Phase 2 at the same time as Phase 1, but had to split them up because of available funding. So as soon as the contractor has or is just about ready to wrap up Phase 1, we'll be out to bid on Phase 2. We wanted to hold off on Phase 2 just so that we didn't have two different contractors working in the same area and kind of bumping into each other. That project is also going to be combined with J Street and Crescent Street. It's 2 areas off the Chandler and Main intersection where we've experienced a few breaks over the past few years. We want to replace that main and address the reliability issues in that area. So that project is about 11,000 linear feet combined. It touches a lot of the streets down in South Tewksbury that have, as Mr. Goodwood said, the 2-inch wrought iron pipe that's been in there for 60 to 75 years. And it's not a coated iron pipe, so it does have tuberculation, which makes the pipe even smaller inside. We're going to be adding hydrants in that area at the end of the mains so that we can flush, so we can increase and improve the water quality in that area. And like Mr. Goodwood said, afterwards we're going to go through and we're going to be paving roads in that area as part of our 5-year paving plan. The next project is Whipple Road. That's an area from the Lowell-Tewksbury border all the way down to the Chandler Street and Whipple Road intersection. That's asbestos cement AC pipe. It was installed back between 1951 and 53. It's got a 50-year lifespan. It's been in the ground now for at least 68 years. So it needs to come out of the system. And that is approximately 17,000 linear feet of pipe, so over 3 miles of pipe that will be taken out. That project also overlaps with a sidewalk project on Whipple Road, as well as an intersection project at Whipple and Chandler. So we'll get that water main out. We'll be able to move forward with those other transportation projects. Pike Street and Astle Street. Pike Street is, again, a 6-inch asbestos cement pipe that has outlived its usefulness. We've responded to, I think, at least 3 major breaks in the last year out there. So this program actually helps accelerate that project, brings it up a few years from where it had been planned. So that's a good benefit from this. Astle Street, same thing. It's an old AC pipe. We experienced a lot of breaks and service leaks up there. The Fisk Street project, that was recently added. That is 6-inch AC as well. We're also planning a sidewalk along Fisk Street in that area, as well as resurfacing. We were put on a short list through Representative Moulton's office for the member designated projects. So we're hoping to dovetail, we're hoping to receive that funding, but move that project, the sidewalk project, forward, and this will dovetail with that. The Beach Street neighborhood is a neighborhood that has a lot of 2-inch wrought iron pipe that needs to be removed from the system. A lot of dead-end mains, so the water quality is really poor down there, and we do experience a lot of breaks in that area as well. The Pringle Street neighborhood, again, County Road, Pringle Street experiences a lot of breaks due to the AC. And Victor Drive is a cast iron pipe. One of the things that we experience on Victor Drive is that the bolts on the fittings are rusting out. They have stainless steel fittings, stainless steel components, but the bolts are not stainless steel. So it just, their time is up, and those bolts let loose, and then we experience water breaks. So we're hoping to get that out of the system as well. And as Mr. Gilbert said, it's about 46,000 linear feet of pipe in this plan, 8.7 miles that we're hoping to replace.
The cost that you are citing on this slide, is that just the pipe replacement aspect, or does it include, you mentioned sidewalks and repaving, is that component, are those components in these numbers, or is that additional cost?
That would be additional cost.
Yeah.
This is just the pipe replacement and paving associated with the water trench.
Yeah.
There's an economy in holding off on having waterline contractors do the final paving and folding that into a paving program. So we're hoping to take advantage of that as well to extend the funding even further.
So if we were to go forward with this, and we're talking about $9 million, what would be the rough additional benefit to the town in terms of paving expense and sidewalk expense? If you looked at it as a total value, what are we talking about?
I'm not sure I understand that.
To add in the cost of paving and
Sidewalks,
sidewalks and
paving,
everything.
curbing. If you did, all of these streets, new pipes, roadway, what are we talking about?
Well, the sidewalk's very difficult.
Yeah.
The paving is a lot easier
Yeah.
to get to. It'd be
Yeah.
about 2.5, roughly, over 10
Yeah.
miles.
Yeah.
Okay, so just in rough numbers, we're probably talking like 12 million, $13 million, right? That the community benefits from, and we're leveraging this program to do 3/4 of it.
Correct.
And the other funds would come from what? I think you mentioned, like Congressman Moulton has secured some funding.
Right.
You have other sources that are involved with other paving and
Yes.
curbing and all that?
Yeah, we pursue complete streets funding for the sidewalk and intersection projects,
Right.
as well as Chapter 90.
Okay, excellent.
Just quickly, and I'll go through the next couple of slides, but before we leave this one, so based on the projects we're bringing forward, if you compared this to our 5-year plan that we submitted for the FY22 budget, we're roughly doing double the amount of work over the next couple of years. The other thing is, as they mentioned before, getting this infrastructure done gets us ahead or probably consistent with our paving program. So we're not paving roads and then going in and needing to do pipes. So that's important to us. One other area that, that they thought about, which was good planning on their part, the importance of Whipple Road. Not only is the size of the project that was originally slated over 2 years, and now we can do it in one major project. We also want to get that project done because the state's going to be coming in with the reconstruction of Route 38. And we don't want to tie up too much of the town's major roadways. So getting this project started, phasing that in properly, so we're keeping all of the traffic here, the network of roads open is important, so that added a benefit too. If we kept to the 5-year plan, that would have been more difficult. So another reason for bringing this forward. But just quickly, and this is all projection based on current, what we projected in our rates for FY22, based on flow, based on certain increases in our budgets. The rates based on what we used for usage, for flow, for increase in budgets had a 5% projected increase in FY23, a 4% in FY24, 2% in FY25 and 26, and then 3% in FY23. That included borrowing $2 million a year for water distribution projects. Now, using these funds to get ahead of the projects, we can delay borrowing of funds for water distribution till FY25. The only borrowing we will do is in FY '23, we'll need to borrow $1.5 million for the water tank at Astle Street, which was in our plans anyways. Based on using these funds, pushing off some of the borrowing, you'll see right now we're projected to to keep rates stable with no increase in FY '23, 2% in FY '24, and then back to the 2, 2, and 3 in '25 and '26. It's not a big savings, but it is a savings to the ratepayer. The first year on average will be about $45.50. Over the 5 years, $70.32. But it is a benefit financially, which is always something we want to look at. But then going into further benefits, I just mentioned stabilizing water rates for another year, advancing water distribution projects by 2 to 3 years, which is important, addressing problem areas by increasing the reliability and quality of drinking water through the reduction of water main breaks, removing old wrought iron and asbestos cement pipe. Additional benefits include fire flow and water pressure, and then obviously, as I mentioned earlier, installing mains in these roads that are in need of other capital improvements such as paving, sidewalks, reconstruction, and draining. So we're staying, consistent with those projects or getting ahead of them. So when we looked at the overall use of these funds, the ability and the criteria for these funds, we felt the water distribution provided the most direct benefit to residents, provided a small financial benefit, and long-term benefits based on the water quality and water reliability. The one thing that has been asked and mentioned, and we talked about this internally also, right from the beginning when we found out we were receiving these funds, could we use these funds to help pay for the DPW school maintenance facility? That's something we were kind of excited about in the beginning, thinking what a great way to boost the economy, create jobs, take care of an area that we have a need. But they're very specific in what you can use the funds for, so you cannot use it for it, or it's something we would have considered. But there may be indirect benefits because using the funds for water projects may free up other funds within the enterprise funds that could be used to help pay for the DPW school maintenance facility, because water and sewer are part of that facility. We house those divisions, house their equipment, so there may be an indirect benefit. It's just not something we know at this point. So that's the presentation. We think it's a good use of funds. If the board, obviously we'll go through some questions, but if the board was comfortable moving forward and approve this, we would get on this right away tomorrow and start the wheels going in this process. And that's
Thank
it.
you, Mr. Montori. Just to let the board know, Mr. Kelly had to step away for now. Are there any questions from the board?
I have a couple of questions. Thank you. First of all, thank you for this presentation. I really appreciate it. And looking at the 5 areas that we could use this funding, I agree that this is the area that directly benefits our residents the most. So I want to thank Mr. Montori and his team for making that the priority. So first and foremost, I want to thank you for that. And then I know that this aligns with the capital plan. So when we move these projects off of the capital plan, are there going to be other projects that you're going to put on there, or we're just going to keep the rate reduction and that's going to be the benefit of this? Because if you were borrowing $2 million per year, is that the plan, or are you going to consider other projects as well?
So the plan is to keep the rate reduction where we're estimating right now, not adding any more projects than what we've shown tonight, pushing, because this is going to take us a couple of years, so we'll probably get back into the 5-year plan somewhere around late FY '24, '25. We do have $1.8 million in retained earnings available that town meeting approved, as well as some funds left over from other water projects that will also allow us to do smaller projects throughout town to continue the work going beyond these 7. But the biggest factor for me, and I've had this conversation with Kevin and Brian, we need to really evaluate how much work we can put on our plate.
Yep.
Right? The biggest issue when you come forward with money at town meeting or to this board or anywhere, you got to deliver, right?
Yep.
Town residents want us, they'll approve the money, but they want to see results. So that's why we backed off a lot of the other projects, and we're going to stick to these 7 and then pick up the 5-year plan in late '24, '25.
I think that that is a very wise decision to put too many projects. You have to manage them, and that does get tricky. I mean, you were just talking about the Bay State Road and just the problem with potentially having 2 different contractors bumping into each other, and having the entire town, this pretty much goes all around the entire town from my look at it quickly. You'd be ripping up every place at the same time, so that's a concern of mine. And then I am worried about that 1.8, and if we, so there is the potential that, other than the water tank, that may not be expended and could stay in retained earnings?
No, it's already been allocated by town meeting to use on water distribution, so it will stay in that warrant article. And as these projects start to wind down, we'll start using that money to start other projects. So that's already been approved.
But I guess my question is, what fiscal year, it's not going to be spent right away?
No, that's still a couple of years away.
So it's out fiscal years after we spend this $9 million?
Correct.
Or around $9 million?
This will be the first amount of money, bucket of money we spend.
Okay. And then my last question is regarding the quality of the drinking water. I noticed that we get these great little pamphlets or these great little flyers all the time from you all, which I love, and it says that our drinking water is pretty good from what I read on that. Is this in these areas that the drinking water is poor, or is it just going to be the drinking water is good and now it's going to be great?
I would go with the second one on that one, the latter. It is good water. We do have situations, especially with the iron, where it's running through the pipe and it picks up that rust or that brown water, we've had brown water issues. It's potable, but, it's one of those things where, you don't want to drink brown water. But the water itself we have excellent water in Tewksbury.
And that's what I want to
Yeah.
just make sure that people don't walk away from this thinking that drinking water is not good to drink.
No, it absolutely is a good water, and it's things such as that. If we have a water break and there's a rush of water through the lines, it will score the pipe and pick up that brown water. I mean, the tuberculation. It will clear once we get the water break fixed and people run their water. That'll clear right up. But this will take that pipe out of the system that is causing that browning.
Okay, and I just have 2 other quick questions.
The other thing about water quality too that I wanted is the amount of water that they do get. It's if you have 4 or 5 homes on a 2-inch pipe that's tuberculated and it's basically the size of a quarter, you notice when your neighbors turn on the laundry and things of that sort. So it's going to improve that level of quality as well.
Oh, good, their flow.
Their flow.
For lack of a better. And then the other question is, how many water breaks do we have in a given year?
About 45 on average. I think you have the actual numbers on it.
Yeah, so between 2018 and the first half of 2021, we had 137 water breaks and an additional 47 service leaks. So that's over 180, in that 42-month span. So, we are probably in excess of 55 to 60 main breaks and service leaks per year.
What do you think the percentage will be? How do you think that this will impact that? I know you're going to decrease it, but do you expect it to be half? Do you expect it to be quarter?
So of those breaks that occurred you know, the 137 breaks in the past 3.5 years, 32 of those were in the areas identified in this plan. You know, so what's that, about 2/5 or a quarter of the breaks will be addressed, you know, those locations will be addressed with this plan.
And then,
However, I do want to caution you. The nature of the work that we're going to be doing is fixing a pipe in areas that we know are weak and have a problem. And when we put good pipe in there, that problem could move.
okay.
So as much as we're fixing the areas that we know are problematic, we could be having other areas that eventually.
I like the disclaimer, I
Yeah,
appreciate
that
that.
is it.
I appreciate that. I think that's good for people to know. It's certainly good for me to know.
Put it out
And
there.
then my last thing is, these hydrants, is that going to be a safety, or is it just strictly for the pipes? Would that be a safety factor for these, where the hydrants are going to go as well?
Oh, that's definitely a benefit.
Okay,
Yeah.
so how many hydrants will you be installing, do you know?
I don't know at this time.
Okay. I think that's great. The more hydrants, the better.
Yeah, but we'll be able to flush those lines, which right now we can't.
Yeah.
And so there are a number of benefits there in terms of, that's a water quality issue as well.
I will say, you know, we're working in South Tewksbury right now, replacing a lot of that 2-inch pipe. So a lot of those homes are on bypass, which is a 4-inch pipe in the road. You know, you've seen them running along the side of the road. We've already gotten comments from residents down there that their water pressure has improved greatly.
Great.
And we're putting 8-inch pipe in the ground. So, you know, the pipe that they're utilizing now is half the size of the pipe that they're gonna be utilizing when the project is done, but they've already seen a dramatic increase in pressure and volume. So, you know, it's just a matter of time before we're able to improve the problems that we have down there.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, Mr. Mackey?
Absolutely. So when Mr. Montori told me that this was an acceptable use for these funds, I was elated because I know how many questions I get about it and how many questions we all get about it. So this is amazing. My questions are around the stuff we're not addressing. Obviously, this is a great start, but we keep mentioning that AC pipe, which we know is the problem. How much other AC pipe do we have in town? And are we going to be replacing any sections? As you mentioned, the problem may move. Are we plugging any new pipe back into old AC pipe? That may kind of lead us to believe that that's likely where the problem will be.
That's a great question. We've got about 42 miles of AC pipe in town currently. The South Tewksbury project will eliminate about a mile of that. And then once we complete this plan, we'll have about 35 miles left in town. Anytime we do connect to an AC pipe, you know, there is a vulnerability there. We use special fittings that have some flexibility to them, and we connect in a way to, you know, reduce that, the chance or likelihood of a problem. You know, but like Mr. Gilbert said, you know, you have that potential of pushing that problem down the street until all of that pipe is out of the ground.
Absolutely, and that's a kind of a known risk. We're not going to be able to do it all in one shot as much as we all like to be able to. I guess I just want to make sure we don't have a section of AC pipe that kind of comes from the known good area, and then we're kind of fixing down the line and leaving that middle section, which is then gonna, as you mentioned, when we turn it on, turn it off, turn it back on, depressurize, repressurize that pipe and have issues, we may be in a potentially worse spot for some of these neighborhoods with those large swaths of AC pipe. So,
And I think, and to that point, the money we have in retained earnings that I mentioned,
That might-
the money we have left over from other water distribution projects, we're holding that for those type issues where it might be a side street that all of a sudden became problematic because we fixed this area, as you mentioned. So I think we'll be able to adjust to those.
And we've taken some of that concern into our planning. For instance, on Fisk, we've added Bailey. Bailey doesn't have a problem, but it's between River Road that has ductile iron, and then we're bringing ductile all the way down Fisk, and then you have this section of AC. I mean, let's just finish it off, and then we go ductile to ductile to ductile, so.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to let the board know that Mr. Kelly has rejoined the meeting via WebEx. Is that correct, Jason? Thank you.
That is correct. Can you
We can hear
can you
you.
hear me? Is my audio coming through?
Loud and clear, Mr. Chairman.
All right, very good. That room's a little too stuffy for me, so I don't want to faint, so I apologize, but I got to sneak out of there. Okay, very good. Okay. Are there any other further questions from the board?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Thank
I
you.
do too.
Please.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming this evening and giving, I think, I concur with my colleagues, this is a great project. They've asked many of the questions I had. I wanted to get a little bit better of an idea of your timeline. You're just trying to do this between this summer, next fall, next spring, next summer. Is that the intention? What are you thinking?
So we intend to start later this summer on the first project, and we expect it to go next construction season as well as the following construction season.
Okay. Is there enough capacity in the contractor market to handle this many projects? Are you concerned about that? Because I'm concerned about that, which is why I think it's very good to bring it forward as soon as possible.
I think there is a concern. It really depends on how much funding is going to be utilized in this area for these types of projects by other communities, who are receiving similar funding.
Exactly.
Over the past probably 4 or 5 years, we've done approximately $2 million of water work a year, and have had, as few as 6, but as many as 16 contractors bidding on that work. We're increasing our amount of work by about 50%, so about $3 million a year. It is more, but seeing the number of contractors we've had bid on projects in the past, I think we'll be able to get favorable bidding and enough interest in the projects.
Great. My last question was touched on a little bit by Mrs. Stronach, and that was about water quality, and you addressed that issue. But my question is, when you're prioritizing the projects, how is water quality part of that prioritization?
Oh, the 2-inch water lines was something that we made an adjustment to our capital program, because if you know that they're iron pipe, we do get, and looking at some of the other projects, such as the cast iron,
Yeah.
that will give you, brown water. So it was, as a matter of this money has to be sort of aligned, I guess, with the SRF. So we kind of took that into consideration. We looked at the EPA's SRF program and how they actually look at projects. It's water quality water quality and environmental quality. And so we looked at that as a priority. And taking out some of the pipe that, for instance, I think there was one up in North Tewksbury that we took out to add more 2-inch pipe.
Okay.
And the SRF is a state revolving fund, and it's based on the Water Quality Act. So, that's where a lot of the criteria comes from these projects. So, water quality is the top of the list.
Okay, thank you. That's what I like to hear. Those are my primary questions right now, but if I have any others, I'll give you a call.
Okay.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Any other questions or comments from the board?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Just for the weekend warrior Home Depot guy, you've mentioned iron, cast iron, stainless steel, I think I heard you reference. So what's the gold standard piping that we're going to use? What are we putting in the ground?
We use a cement line ductile iron.
Okay,
Ductile iron is more flexible than cast iron.
yeah,
So, as the temperature changes or, we have any, fluctuations in the ground or
Yeah.
thing like that, frost, it actually is able to bend and flex a little.
all right. And that's, in your opinion, right now, that's the top of the pyramid as far as quality of,
It is, yes,
Material.
it is. Not only for durability,
yeah,
it's easier to work with. it's easier to install than some of the other, plastic products and things like that.
And what's the, is there an estimated life, useful life to those, to that equipment?
The manufacturers right now are advertising about 100 years
Okay.
for that pipe.
Of course.
So if we support this now, we won't have to support it later, right? Okay. All right, so that's good. So, and just to follow on Ms. Wellman's comment, I think this is a credit to town management in general, in that I think or suspect that we're trying to get ahead of the curve here. So having this on the agenda tonight, talking about what you've already considered, and hopefully the board will support it, it allows us to get out in front of a competitive marketplace. So other communities haven't, in my opinion, they probably haven't even begun to consider the use of these funds. So I want to just acknowledge and appreciate the administration for being proactive, because it definitely will benefit our community. The only other item I'll just comment on is we all, as Selectman Mackey mentioned, water distribution, and I should rephrase that. Sidewalks are the number one topic in our community. Water distribution is number two. So any project that we can do that's using funds that our taxpayers in town don't have to front, that covers those two items, is a win-win in my mind for Tewksbury. So I have 100% positive response to what you're asking for.
If I could just speak to that real quick. One of the things that we're trying to do with these projects, Whipple Road is a great example, and Fisk as well. We go in and we have the survey done for the waterline project. That survey data can also be used in the future for the sidewalk projects and things like that. So, we're trying to provide some economy to the
No,
work that we're doing.
it's a double win, and the community has spoken loudly and clearly about those two areas. So if we're trying to tackle those for their benefit, then I can't imagine why the community wouldn't support what we're talking about tonight. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, very good. Any other questions or comments from the board?
I do have one, I'm sorry.
Please.
You referenced the securing of the funds by Senator Moulton, Representative Moulton. Wasn't that a competitive grant that you all applied for and was on a short list for? So I appreciate that that they pushed it through, but I do want to acknowledge that there was quite a bit of effort trying to get that in, and if it wasn't of a significant quality, I hear it's a very competitive market for those funds. So I just want to, am I right about that?
You're right. I believe there was over close to 150
Projects.
requests, and I think they only
18?
pushed 17 forward, something like that.
right.
So I just, I appreciate our congressman, but I do want to say that work was done at the local level to get us to be able to put that forward, so just want to mention that.
Okay. All right, anything else from the board? And I feel the same way. I just think it's a complete no-brainer. So Mr. Montori, do we have to take action or approve or to move forward?
If the board could approve the use of the funds for water distribution, then that'll give me the go-ahead to start the process.
I'll gladly offer a motion, Mr. Chairman, to that effect.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. I have a motion, a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Chair votes aye as well, unanimous.
Thank you very much.
5-0.
Mr. Chairman, do we
Thank-
have to do a roll call
Please.
vote if you're remote?
I heard that.
Oh, yeah, How soon did I forget? So
felt
I
so good.
apologize. Let's do it. So I have a motion and I have a second. Roll call vote. Ms. Stronach, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Wellman?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Mackey?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay.
Good stuff.
Thank you. Have a good night. Stay cool,
All right.
right?
Oh, that's right. All right, just bouncing back to new business. We talked about earlier, it's the Board of Selectmen, Boards and Committees membership. So typically here is, again, we look at the committees that we're presently on, and let's see if we want to stay on those committees or change things up, or just kind of like, I'd just like to put everything on the table now. We can do it individually or go through and talk about the boards or committees you're currently on, and if you wish to remain on those committees, it's that simple. No magic stuff here. So how about I'll just pick on someone. Ms. Stronach, how do you feel about the boards and committees you're currently representing, and would you like to be reappointed?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I do want to continue the work on the elementary, the local housing, and the public events. When I took on the task of the Lowell Regional, I made it pretty clear that I would be doing that until June 30th, and to get us across that finish line. Happy to stay on that, but if one of my colleagues would like to step up and take that work on, I believe it's dovetails very nicely with NIMCOG. I know that that could be a possibility, but I offer that for consideration.
Mr. Chairman, I would concur, and I would step into that role if the board felt so inclined, because it does run up with NIMCOG. We talk a lot about the LRTA anyway, so I'm willing to do that.
Okay, just take that in the form of a motion. I think we could make that happen.
I will make a motion to appoint Jane Wellman until April 1st, 2022, to represent the Board of Selectmen at the Lowell Regional Transit Association representative.
Mr. Chairman, before
I have a
I
motion. Do I
second
have a
that, just a point of clarification, what's the significance of April 1st? I just want to...
I used the April 1st because there was the reason that there was a lag on this is because of the election season.
Right.
So I decided to put April 1st because it aligns with our election season moving forward for the appointment to this board. And then when we reconvene the reorg, they could take that up.
Very good. Thank you. I'll second the motion.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second, and because I'm remote, I apologize already. Let's do a roll call vote. Ms. Stronach, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Ms. Wellman?
Aye.
Mr. Mackey?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
And
Chair
before,
votes aye as well. Thank you very much, Ms. Wellman, for stepping up.
thank you. And could I just note that I was at this meeting last Thursday, and we voted not to meet again until September. So
Well done, Mrs. Stronach.
I will forward that information along to you.
Okay. Mr.
Very good.
Chairman?
That's typical. It's typical because of the summer season, so, okay.
It is.
Mr. Chairman, should we appoint Mrs. Stronach to her committees formally, or was that implied in the last vote? Do we need to do that? Do we need to vote to reappoint?
Maybe I'll defer to Ms. Stronach or Mr. Johnson. How have we done it in the past? Do we just take a formal vote? That's probably proper?
My suggestion, Mr. Chairman, if it's acceptable to my colleagues, would be to get through the whole list and then vote once for all the appointments as
Right.
requested.
I like that so much better.
And
Even better,
I
very.
just want to note that for my committees, the Elementary Building Committee is set up with the MSBA, so that is until the project ends or until the representative of this board leaves, just FYI.
Okay, very good. All right. How about Ms. Wellman?
Well, first of all, the Cable Television Advisory Committee, I think we should sunset that committee. This committee does not meet. All the work has been done for all of the successor agreements. Is that correct, Mr. Montori?
That's correct.
So essentially, the work is done. That was really an advisory committee to set up the telemedia program or some other work, and as we all know, they're doing a great job. So the board, we can sunset it, but this committee does not meet. So, or somebody else could sit on this committee.
Are you offering a motion?
I would make a motion to sunset this committee.
I'll second that.
We can always
I have a
bring it
motion
back
and a
if we feel
second.
there's a need.
Exactly. Ms. Stronach, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Wellman?
Aye.
Mr. Mackey?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well, so that committee is officially, we'll put that to rest for a little bit. And like you said, Ms. Wellman, if anything ever comes up because things change, we can always just dust that committee off and adjust accordingly. Okay, perfect. All right, Ms. Wellman, the floor is still yours.
I do enjoy the bylaw committee and the diversity, equity, and inclusion committee and NIMCOG. Those are my bigger priorities. The beautification committee, I would be happy to hand off that committee, although I adore that committee and we do great work, and I still volunteer to do the same activities that we do. But it's well-run, so I don't feel a need to step on that committee. The other ones are pretty time-consuming right now, and in light of my recent family situation, I want to kind of conserve a little bit of my time. It's not that it takes much time to do beautification. Like I said, it is well-run. So that's my request vis-a-vis beautification. If Mr. Mackey or Mr. Johnson would like to join, I'm sure they would welcome you with open arms.
Gentlemen?
And that is all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. And we don't need to, if you have a decision this evening, perfect. If not, what we're going to do is we're going to revisit boards and committees. We'll all go through. So just to highlight, what we're going to do is formally reappoint this evening. And that's going to make our jobs a lot easier than to see the vacancies and just to ask all the different applicants that applied, and we still need more applicants to apply. We'll send them we call it our simple questionnaire. No need to bring folks in for interviews. So anyways, that's just, kind of housekeeping. So if there's no decision this evening, we're going to revisit it probably our next select board meeting.
Okay.
All right. How about Mr. Johnson?
Yep. I have interest in two committees, Mr. Chairman, but I believe, and I may be wrong, but I think the General Bylaw Committee has one selectman representative, and where Ms. Wellman is there, I would, if I'm correct in that assessment, I would ask that the committee potentially consider me as a resident. I have a lot of interest in the bylaws.
I would welcome that.
So that would be one.
Tremendously.
And another committee that's not listed on this sheet, but I know does exist, is the Zoning Bylaw Committee, which I served previously on, and we all know what occurred at our most recent annual town meeting, but I'd like to see that project through to completion. So I'm interested in serving on that committee as well.
Mr. Chairman?
Okay.
I'd like to add a friendly
Please.
amendment to the conversation here. Considering the committees I'm already on, I would be happy to do a succession and have Mr. Johnson be the selectman representative to the General Bylaw Committee, but I would like to attend as a resident, and we can kind of work that transition over, because we've had a few meetings, but I want to keep that momentum going. So something like that, unless you don't want to do that just now. We can work on that over the summer.
Yep, that's fine.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you, Ms. Wellman and Mr. Johnson. And Mr. Johnson, I was hoping you were going to say that about the zoning bylaw committee, because I know, I believe you might have even started that committee a few years back, so.
So happy to do it.
All right.
I'd like to help get us over the finish line.
Okay, very good. So just as a placeholder for the General Bylaws Committee, we're going to insert Mr. Johnson as a board representative and Ms. Wellman as a resident.
Correct.
Correct?
Correct.
Okay. And I'm looking very quickly here. I think a lot of the dates are June 30th, 2022. That's typical. So let's go with that unless there's an asterisk. I know some of the different seats may be a little bit longer, but I think those seats there are just the typical, the 1 year, June 30th, 2022.
Mr. Chairman,
Please, Mr. Arkell.
I think it would be a good idea if we thought about using the April 1st, 2022 as a new date for us moving forward, rather than having the June 30th. So I just offer that to you all as some food for thought.
Did I see that as a recommendation? I apologize, Ms. Stronach, for interrupting. Was that a recommendation from the town
Yeah,
clerk?
I'm asking, I mean, we appointed you to the LRT using that date, and I just suggest that we think about that date moving forward for the rest of the appointments, so it aligns as people come on and off the board, and then we could just move forward seamlessly, and then we could focus on our community positions in the June timeframe and not have to do our positions at that same time.
Right, so you're saying just for board appointments?
Board appointments only.
Leave it aligned with the election cycle?
Yes, I am.
I concur with that. I don't have a problem with that, Mr. Chairman. And then we are all settled in our committee appointments, and then the community appointments come at the end of June.
Makes sense, and probably Mr. Montori has the history, it probably just aligns to the fiscal year, right? I mean, pretty much to June 30th.
That's correct.
Okay. Okay. Well, that probably we could take a motion on that or just revisit it, but I would welcome a motion on that if there's any other conversation around that. Makes perfect sense.
If we could do that at the end when I'll be happy to include that in the motion when we finish up and do them as one vote.
Yep.
Okay, very good. Okay. All right, very good. How about Mr. Mackey?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, so having the Economic Development Committee, there's a lot of work to be done there. I would like to retain that. Additionally, I too am interested in the Zoning Bylaw Committee. Other than that, I think that's all I've got.
Can I sell you a beautification committee? You already did all the work.
I like to work from the background on those type of things.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Well, okay. Then that's okay. Fair enough, Mr. Mackey. Very good. And the same here. I'd like to remain on the committees. I think I have the Community Preservation Committee. Just looking at the list quickly, the Taxation Aid Committee. However, for that one there, we might consider a sunset day. We did a little bit of heavy lifting, so I'll work with that committee to see where we go. We haven't met in quite some time, and I'm still on the Tewksbury North and Trahan School Reuse Committee, as well as the Tewksbury School Athletic Fields Committee. But again, that one is winding down. That one's winding down as well. So I would seek to be reappointed to those committees as well. So, with that being said, I think we covered all the different committees, and again, we'll have to revisit. The only one I'm looking here, we'll have to revisit the Tewksbury Beautification Committee for a select board member. But outside of that, I look for a form of one motion, and with the amended date of the April 1, 2022 term limit.
Mr. Chairman, I would make that motion with the one amendment that I will stay on the Tewksbury Beautification Committee, pending great interest from one of my colleagues.
Okay.
So for now.
Okay, so I'll have that as a form of a motion. Do I have a second?
You do.
Okay, very good. So again, roll call vote. Ms. Stronach, how do you vote?
I have a discussion before I place my vote. I'm
Please,
sorry.
okay,
The
please.
zoning bylaw, we had interest from 2 members, and do we have 2 members that sit on that, or is it just 1 member?
If I may, Mr. Chairman, there was a recommendation from the Assistant Town Manager, Steve Sadwick, who's been working with that committee, that we increased the number of selectmen to 2, and we increased the number of planning board members to 2.
Okay.
So if the board is okay with that, then both Mr. Mackey and Mr. Johnson can both serve on the committee. And I think that would be helpful to the Assistant Town Manager.
Great, thank you. With that, I vote aye.
Okay, just further discussion. Would we also have to make that with the planning board folks vote to increase by an additional, or will that be on us to do that on behalf of the planning board?
That'll be on the Board of Selectmen to increase the size, the structure and size of the committee, and then the planning board would just choose 2 members to serve on it.
We're in the middle of a vote.
Okay.
Can we do that as a separate motion, or can we include that in this motion?
It would, I think it needs to be a
I
separate.
think I would do a separate motion.
Okay, so,
Yep.
so then I'll make a motion that we expand the size of the zoning bylaw committee such that 2 Board of Selectmen members and 2 planning board members constitute the membership of that committee.
And I'll second that motion.
Okay, I have a motion and a second, so roll call vote. Ms. Stronach, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Wellman?
Aye.
Mr. Mackey?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well.
Okay, so just to
So, Ms.
reiterate.
Wellman, back to the original motion?
Yep, just to the original motion with the addition that these terms are to expire on April 1, 2022.
Yep, and I'll second the motion.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Roll call vote. Ms. Stronach, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Wellman?
Aye.
Mr. Mackey?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Okay, the chair votes aye as well. Okay, so I think that takes care of the committees and boards on our side. So turning our attention to the boards and committees reappointments. And just for the residents, so for all the folks, all the residents that are on particular boards or committee, the Board of Selectmen office reach out, Janine reaches out and simply says, do you want to be reappointed? So we got the majority of folks come back with either a yay or a nay. In this case, what we're voting on is all the folks that came back with a yes. We should have got something in our packets highlighting that. There's still some folks that we need to reach, and then ultimately we'll know what we have for vacancies on those boards. So this particular vote here is just to reaffirm or reappoint, if you would, the individual, the residents that want to be reappointed to the committees and boards of which they're currently sitting on. Make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, and Mr. Montori, keep me honest. For town council, we also, I think I always get mixed up here. Is that an individual vote outside of the normal process here for all the other boards and committees?
I think you've done them, you've made that appointment as part of the overall group. So
Okay.
if you're comfortable doing that, it's not a problem.
Okay, and that's, okay, very good. So I'm going to pause there because I know Ms. Stronach and Mr. Johnson, you've been doing this a while. Does that make sense, or am I following the correct protocols here?
Works for me.
Yep. And I would just point out,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, we did receive communication from the town clerk, I believe, suggesting or recommending we consider that there be some conditions placed on these appointments. And if I recall correctly, one of them was to, that if we make an appointment, the individual must be sworn in by August 1st, because we've had difficulties in the past, and it is a requirement.
Great call out.
So if the motions are made to, I would ask my colleagues to support the clerk's recommendation on that point. And there was another item associated with that, and it is escaping me, but I can look it up. One moment.
While you're doing that, Mr. Johnson, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Please.
I have a question regarding the Finance Committee. We're voting to reappoint. Does the Selectmen have the authority to reappoint to the Finance Committee? I believe that lies with
That
the...
lies with the chairman and the chairman of the
And the
finance
moderator.
committee.
Moderator, chairman, and
Yes.
selectman.
Yep, so we're going to exempt them from this. And then my only request, Mr. Montori, is once this list is finalized, with the exception of the Finance Committee members, that it be posted as soon as possible as a draft versus when we approve the minutes, just so that residents will know quickly.
Sure.
Yeah. So, Mr. Chairman, the second recommendation was requesting that the board establish a policy that individuals who currently are serving have until August 1st at the latest to indicate that they want to be reappointed, and if they do not do so, then the seats would be vacated and advertised so that we're not lingering months and months.
Yeah, for that one there, Mr. Johnson, I'm reading that. For that one there, I mean, I get the sworn in piece, July 1st, that's all of June and all of July with vacation time. I would think for that one, I don't know, I think we could be a little more aggressive. Again, this is just me. We can, talk through as a board, but for me, I think it'd be a little more aggressive to say if you're on a current board or committee, don't get back, end of July, say, which would be August. Okay. Okay, makes sense for both.
So is there any value to having it before the expiration date? You have to come forward and say you want to have that seat before it expires? So I would, for discussion, say, let's say 90 days prior to, you need to reconfirm, and if you do not confirm, the seat will be posted.
I think that's a great idea. It's really difficult for the office to keep track of this at the last minute. As you saw today, I think 3 versions of this went out just today, so 90 days is great. If you want to give a little bit more time, do 60, but I think Mr. Mackey's absolutely right on that one.
And to
Yeah, we
Mr.
would
Mack-
work, and just for the residents and the board, this is no easy task. This is no easy task. So as a matter of fact, we're way ahead of the game. So if we do the reappointments tonight, you're going to see for the openings or vacancies, we're going to just have a handful on a few committees. So we're in real good shape. We'll figure this out very quickly in the next few weeks. And typically, I know this, and previously, this can run into easily July and August and September, just because there's so many moving parts. So, okay.
And Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to add, as we're sitting here and being representatives on our boards, I think it is incumbent upon us to get our committees to commit to that. And because I think what happens is all of a sudden, it's like, like we talked about this at the event, but we hadn't talked about it prior, but we were meeting. So I'm going to take on that responsibility for the committees that I'm on and kind of put it in my tickler file to make sure that I put it on as an agenda item. I'm not the chair, but I will ask the chair to do that. Because I think a lot of times it just falls off the radar. So I'd encourage you to do that as well.
A good call. I think I'm looking. I think we only have a handful, if that. So, like I said, we're in very good shape here. After the reappointments, we'll assess this upcoming week. We'll post, and we'll have a real good indication of what we need to fill for vacancies, and we'll be well ahead of the game. So, okay. All right, with that being said, sir, any other further discussions? Again, we're going to omit the Finance Committee. Any other further discussions for the reappointments?
Yeah, so one question, Mr. Chairman. So all the highlighted, save for FinCom, are confirmed want reappointment? Is that the discussion?
No, we're not going to. So I'll have a separate meeting with the chair, with the chairman of the board for the Finance Committee, and we do that separately. So we're not going to take any action tonight on the Finance Committee.
Oh, understood. I apologize. I misspoke. So taking Finance Committee out of the picture, the remainder of the highlighted are what we are discussing.
They're
all
multiple
of them,
years.
isn't
They're more than 1 year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you see the dates. So they're 2 or 3 year terms by regulation or statute.
Understood. So I was just saying, so it appears that all the 2024 or 2023 in some case are highlighted.
Yes.
Are we saying that we have confirmed that all of these people have been contacted? Okay, thank you.
I know it's a little bit confusing, and there's no easy way to do it, but Janine does a very good job here, so like I said, I think we'll be in very good shape after the vote, because then what we can do is condense it, and you'll see, these 3 spreadsheets come right down, to a nice little, to probably one, if that, a half a page. Okay. Any other questions from the board?
No.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'll offer a motion to reappoint the individuals listed who have expressed interest in reappointment to date that are on the spreadsheet that has been presented to us as a slate and conditioned on the fact that they get sworn in by August 1st, 2021.
With the exception of the Finance Committee.
Yep, I thought we struck that, but without the Finance Committee being on the list.
Second.
Can I have a second? Okay. Roll call vote. Mr. Mackey, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Ms. Stronach?
Aye.
Ms. Wellman?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well, so it's unanimous.
And Mr. Chairman,
Last but
if
not-
I may, can I,
Please.
and just, I'd like to actually, I'll ask the town manager to maybe help us with this. I don't know if I need to make it in a motion, but my recollection of the process is that the town manager's office, selectman's office, reaches out to the committee members seeking their intention about reappointment. So what I'd like to ask is that we communicate maybe when they get sworn in. Maybe there's a piece of paper that we can hand them that indicates, number one, that they now all need to be sworn in by August 1st. But number two is moving forward to pick up on what Mr. Mackey was suggesting, that all appointees be informed that they need to indicate their intention for reappointment or not by April 30 of each year. And we need to communicate that to them now so they know the rules of the road.
We can do that.
So I don't know if we have to vote on that, but I
No,
think.
we send something out,
Yeah,
and
so
we'll make
if we
sure
can
this
just
language is in there.
incorporate that
Yep.
in their notification, and maybe the town clerk could distribute that when they get sworn in or something to that effect, but we should work on that process.
I'd like to add to that idea that perhaps, depending on the town clerk's schedule and availability, she could do an evening swearing-in ceremony. That often happens. You can swear in the groups together. It's kind of a nice way for people to get to meet, especially now that we're in the ability to meet in person. So that might be a nice option for many members after work some night. So if that's possible with her schedule.
Great idea.
So, and a great way to
Okay,
build
yeah, I don't
esprit
think
de corps.
that. Yep. Good stuff. Mr. Montreal, I'll work with you and Janine and Denise here, and we'll, I think all easy stuff, so we'll, I have some notes here. I'll work with them in the AM to sort this out in relatively, in quick fashion. Okay. All right, anything else before we proceed? Okay, so last but not least, the order of business is boards and vacant appointments. So what we're going to do here is let's get a revised list based on the votes tonight for the reappointments. And like I said, we do have a number of applicants that have expressed interest in the particular committees and boards that have vacancies. I think we still need maybe one or two. We don't have any applicants, so we'll re-advertise that, and that will make, you'll see the list. It's not as daunting as tonight's votes were for the reappointments. In a very near select board meeting, we'll revisit that. So my thought process, again, we can discuss as a board, but not to bring everyone in for interviews, but rather that we set them our three famous questions. We send the three famous questions to go along with their application for the particular boards or committees to make it real easy. And again, we'll set some due dates for them for the applicants to get those questions back into the select board office. Any discussion or thoughts on proceeding that in that direction?
I'm not clear. Are we appointing or not appointing tonight?
Not appointing tonight. We can talk about our new committee, but as far as the vacancies for existing committees that we currently have, let's go through the process of, we're not going to interview. We're going to take the applicant, the application. I think it's prudent to send out our three questions. Why do you want to be the committee? What do you have for experience? And are you familiar with the open meeting laws? Let's get that back in the next 30 days, and I think then it would be appropriate to appoint the vacancies.
Okay.
That makes sense, or is that confusing?
No, it's fine. In my opinion, if you want to hold off, we can do that. And then we have a full slate. We're also
Yeah, I think
allowing
we'll have a
other
clean-
interested residents more time to apply.
Exactly.
I would agree with that, but for the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Committee, I think we've done all those interviews and we should proceed with appointments tonight.
But there are some other people who have applied.
We shut off the applications that we were
Okay.
receiving, I
Thank
think,
you.
in May at some point. We said we're going to accept all of them from this point on, so we could schedule those interviews, so
Great.
I think so, yeah. But other than that, I think that's a
Well,
fine idea.
Okay. And again, I just think it's only fair, especially after we just revised, there's still a few question marks for a few committees. I think we just sorted that out. But as far as the diversity, equity, and inclusion, I probably should have put that down as a chair, just to give the board the proper heads up. So Ms. Wellman's right. I think we had 16 candidates. We went through the interviews, and we did lock that down, so to speak. So in fairness to the board, I probably, again, I apologize. I should have put that down as a specific agenda item, because that's one of the committees that we should have been prepared for. Again, that's on me. So we can discuss as a board. I don't know if the board is ready, and have their candidates that they wish to appoint to that particular committee, or let's get it on the, what's our next meeting is the July 13th meeting. We can be ready then. I'll put that as a specific agenda item. And again, so I apologize. I should have put that down, not to confuse the board.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to ask Ms. Wellman's indulgence, because I don't have the names in front of me. They're not in the packet. And I'd like to ask if we can hold this to the 13th or another special meeting in between or something. But I don't want to stall off, but I don't have the info in front of me, and it wasn't in the materials, so I'd like to wait.
Sure. I pulled mine out from my old materials because it wasn't in the packet, and that's fine. I concur with that. I would like to see if the board is interested in discussing the size of the committee. I mentioned this during the last meeting, we were planning to appoint 7 people, and if the board would like to continue to and choose 7 people at our next meeting, or do we want to increase the size of the committee? And there are some options we can do that would allow more of these folks to come forward, because we had so many really excellent candidates. So, for example, we have Mr. Montori and Chief Ryan and the school superintendent, Chris Malone, who are holding XO seats. We could turn their seats into participant seats, member seats. Or I would be interested in other ideas from the committee, from the board, or none. We can stay with the original design. So I'm throwing that out
So why
for
don't we do this, Ms.
conversation.
Wellman? Well, yeah. What if we do this again? That falls on me. I should have put that on the agenda this evening and made it crystal clear, because it is a new committee. But to your point, I'll discuss with the board. We don't have to wait till July 13th. I think this is an easy lift. So I'll work with the board and see if we need to meet earlier, or if we wait till the 13th. And I'll put number 1 is, let's consider the committee, the size of the committee per Ms. Wellman, and then we'll just get right into the appointments. Either way, is that fair? Is that fair?
That's fine with me. Is it useful if we work on some sort of list of options for the board to consider in advance? That sort of give you some thinking, some topics?
I would say it's probably good to know how many seats we're assessing for when we go back and look at this information. So at least having an idea of how many seats we want would probably.
Well, yeah, because we can put, here's what we intended when we set up the committee, and this is the numbers that we put. And I don't really think that any of us thought there would be so much interest in this committee. And so recognizing that, what are other options to consider or not consider? So I'm happy to work with Mr. Montori or the chair, or Mr. Chairman, you can do that, to bring something forward. So in the packet, there's something to work with versus, coming out of whole cloth. Does that make sense? So.
It totally does, yep. So we'll just prepare the board with different options. And again, but Ms. Wellman, I feel very comfortable with you working with Mr. Montori to kind of formulate, hey, here's what I'm thinking about option 1, 2, and 3. We'll have it as an agenda item, then we can kind of digest that and vote as a board, whether it's July 13th or earlier, if that works for you.
Mr. Johnson's nodding over here, and I wonder if he has thoughts. I see thoughts moving across.
I'm fine with the conversation.
Okay.
Yep, that's fine. Let's go that route.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Mr.
Okay, very
Chairman.
good.
Thank you. I appreciate the indulgence of the board.
Mr. Chairman, can I just jump in for
And
one
again,
other
I-
item in regard to appointments?
Please.
We received today applicants to fill the Housing Authority seat as a tenant, and the board needs to make that appointment in July. There are 5 applicants. I'll send the applications to the board. So as you go through, if you're going to have a special meeting or even on the 13th, filling that seat is going to be something the board's going to need to do.
Yep.
Okay.
It's good news.
Okay, perfect, thank you. We'll just duly noted, and we'll put it on the agenda item, and we won't,
Yeah.
and we'll tackle that, like I said, during our next meeting. Okay, easy enough.
Okay.
All right, and again, I apologize again, to the team, I should have put the Diversity, Equality, and Inclusion Advisory Committee on the agenda, okay.
And Mr.
All right,
Chairman, just
looking, I think
one
that's
last housekeeping item, right? I think Janine did a lot of work to organize what we have in front of us, so let's avoid having her to rebuild it again, right? We should supplement what we have here tonight with the Diversity Committee and the Housing Authority
Yeah, she does.
and any other applicants, but this should be the foundation, so she doesn't have to redo this and kill a lot of trees.
We can just repost this packet or something like that.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Yep, I'll work with her and Mr. Montori, and it's every year it gets better and better and better and better. So we'll, just All right, team. I'm just trying to look. I think that's really the any other new business. I'm looking. I think that's really the kind of wraps up our order of new business for this evening. Any other new business anyone like to bring up? Okay, seeing Mr. Montori, anything else on your side?
No, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
All right, I don't believe we don't have any minutes, so it's going to bring us to board member reports. How about Ms. Stronach?
Thank you very much. I'm looking at my calendar to talk about the events committee. They're getting ready for the festival. We met last Thursday. They're very excited about it. It is at the end of September, the last Saturday in September, and the rain date is the first Saturday in October. And we're looking forward to that. And I want to remind residents that the farmers market is also in play right now at the library, 4 to 7. And it's really a lot of vendors there. I think pretty soon you're going to end up having to find a new venue for that. So that's a really great take. The local housing, partnership housing, did not meet this week. We were anticipated to meet with Hanover, who is looking to do a 40B project over at Ames Pond. They are going to be moving forward with submitting to the state, and we are looking forward to potentially getting a one-pager from them that will talk about the project. And I would encourage the town manager maybe to set up a meeting for us to take a tour of the facility that they have in Westford, because I hear that this project should be similar to that. I don't know if that's true or not. We'll wait for the one page up, but if people are interested, we should definitely take a look at that. I do want to make it pretty clear that as a 40B project, there is not a lot of wiggle room for the town. I think that the best we will be able to do is leverage the mitigation, and I have confidence in the town manager and Steve Sadwick to work with all of us to make that happen. So I think that that's important. The elementary building committee meeting I talked about that at our last meeting. I do want to let residents know that we changed the date of our next meeting. It is July 22nd. I was able to go on a tour of that facility recently. It's amazing is the best word for me to describe it right now. And it's on budget and on time. But lots of work going on over there, and I see that they have shut off another section. And the Lowell Transit, I gave you that we met on Thursday, we approved the budget, and the next meeting will be in September. And that's all I have.
Good stuff. Thanks, Ms. Strong. How about Ms. Wellman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Two brief things. First, regarding NIMCOG, we have a retirement of the director, Beverly Woods, will be retiring in December, and the assistant director, Jay Donovan, will be retiring, I believe, in September or October. So, so this is big news, and that was announced at our last meeting a couple of weeks ago. So they've done a tremendous job in their community and for our communities through their work at NIMCOG, and they have a tremendous amount of institutional knowledge that they'll be taking with them. They've also done a great job of mentoring and raising up new staff so that we will not be left without expertise. So I thank them for their service, and I will extend the board's thanks to them as well as we go forward toward their retirements. And then finally, tomorrow night at 7 p.m. on the Town Common, there is a Pride rally. And we're very excited about this. It's the last day of the month, but Pride does not end with June. So I will be there, and we'll have a number of other local, the state delegation will be there. I think the District Attorney, Marian Ryan, will be there as well, and a number of other guests. And I want to thank the Tewksbury Town Democratic Committee and Indivisible, Billerica, Tewksbury, and Wilmington groups for sponsoring and bringing this forward. Thank you very much.
Okay, it's going to be a hot one.
I know.
It's going to be a hot one, so. All right. Thank you, Ms. Wellman. How about Mr. Mackey?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Two quick items. First, I wanted to give Mr. Montori, our IT director, Mr. Jamie Bent, and all the town staff who are working to do the prep work for the upgrade to our website. That foundational work has already been started. Additionally, working closely with Mr. Montori, we were able to submit to the state to try to get some assistance and bring in some state resources to do a cybersecurity assessment and kind of find out what our baseline is, figure out where we can go from there, all at no cost to the town, and hopefully we can start mitigating with some policies, procedures, and no-cost things to really improve our posture. Thank you.
Good stuff. Thank you. How about Mr. Johnson?
Yeah, just one comment, Mr. Chairman. I just want to thank the 60 or so people that we reappointed tonight who volunteered their time to benefit our community. And I want to thank, I think there's probably another 20 or 30 individuals who we did not act upon their applications yet, but they too have at least raised their hand to this point to serve our community in different capacities. So I know those of us at this table fully appreciate the commitment that's required, but it's really refreshing to see, as Ms. Wellman indicated earlier, 16 people apply for a 7-member committee in one instance, and to have the level of interest in serving the town of Tewksbury and fellow residents is a testament to people, and I just want to recognize and thank them for doing so. And that's all I have this evening, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. You kind of stole my thunder. I mean that in a very good way, Mr. Johnson. I mean, that's the character of Tewksbury. We have so many people volunteering to make Tewksbury, a special place. And the hours that some of these folks put in for their boards and committees is just incredible. And when you get to work with them and talk with them and see what all these folks do at a volunteering level, it truly makes that's what makes our community great. I said it's just wonderful. It's the character of Tewksbury. So thank you, Mr. Johnson. You're spot on, and we can't thank them enough. Okay. And all I had, as far as the Tewksbury, North and North Street and the Trahan, I always get the Trahan, I say it both ways. The reuse committee, we're going to, I'm going to call it a dog and pony show. So we're basically we're speaking of boards and committees. We're going to come to every board and every committee in the next 30 to 60 days. We have a couple slides simply highlighting the properties of the Trahan, of the North Street, to say, hey, if you had a blank canvas, what would you want to do? We've got a lot of interest from the local housing partnership, from the open space and recreation planning committee. So we've already got a lot of reach out. So again, we're going to come probably to the select board sooner than later, and it's going to be a couple simple questions. We're going to say, hey, here are the current bylaws or zoning bylaws. Here's what we can and can't do. But kind of throw those away, because remember, if there's a use, a potential use for any of those parcels or properties, we can always go ahead and potentially submit an article during town meeting, special town meeting, and change that, or request a change from the residents, to make something work. So we have no agenda, pretty simple, based on every committee, board, other committees or different boards. What would you potentially like to see there? And get a list, and we're also, Mr. Montori, going to hit up all the department heads as well in town, and then ultimately we'll collect all those different thoughts from the boards and committees, and of course, we won't forget the residents. We'll do session after session, however many sessions it takes with the residents to get input from the residents as well, because ultimately we work for them. So just a heads up that we're going to be coming to the boards and committees near you. So I wanted to get everyone's gears going, and again, we'll probably hit the select board sooner rather than later, and we'll try to keep that to about 30 minutes, because I know there's a lot of dialogue around what are we thinking as a town. So, okay, so and I think that's all I had on my side. With that being said, any questions, comments from the board?
No, Mr. Chairman, only to just comment that now I know what it felt like to be the Tin Man in The Wizard of Oz with the man behind the curtain tonight.
Right.
So, thank you.
It does feel like Oz, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah, kind of calm Oz.
Listen.
I know, I apologize. I'm a big guy. I was overheating. I give you guys all credit. I was going to faint, so I stuck in my basement where it's about 62. It's so comfortable. With that being said, I look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
I get a motion, a second. Final roll call vote on the night. Ms. Stronach, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Wellman?
Aye.
Mr. Mackey?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Thank you very much. Good night. Bye-bye.